Hi guys, this is week 22 Project Life and I am using the brand new Big and Small kit from Feed Your Craft and Brandy Kincaid. Now there are a couple of cards in this kit that I knew I was going to use, one of which is this Here We Go circle card. So I specifically printed out my coffee photos to fit inside those circles. I just sort of roughly measured them and printed those out so that they would fit. And the other card is this sort of begin and ending sort of card that I am going to split into two 3x4s. So I printed some littler photos to go on there. Now there are a couple of cards in here that I had wanted to use. One was the small 3x4 that would have worked perfectly with Lily, but because it kind of belongs with big, there's a big and a small card, I kind of want to keep them together. So I'm going to try and do something with one of these other ones. Now my idea for this Here We Go card is I wanted to cut the circles out, and I thought the easiest way to do that would be with some dies, but as luck would have it, none of my dies fit. So I'm going to have to use my silhouette, and I'll show you how I do that. So I've just quickly opened my Silhouette Studio, and all I'm going to do is drag in that same card in the PNG file from inside the digital kit. And it should be the exact right size that I need it. So you can see here on the grid lines, it's 4x6, so I literally don't have to do anything else to it. I'm gonna put some crop marks on here so that I can print this and cut it out. These are the default crop marks. You can play around with these as far as how big and small to make them. That would depend on how your printer prints and whether your silhouette picks it up, but I do suggest playing around with it. I have managed to have some success with making them smaller, and it does give you a bigger cutting space, so there is always that option too. I'm just going to zoom in on here, and all I want to do is create 3 cut lines to cut out the inside of these circles, which is super easy because we're just going to choose circle and drag out a circle while holding shift, and that's about it. And then it's just a matter of placing it inside the printed circle here. So you can choose whether you want to cut that into the color. I kind of want to have a little bit of a white line around my photo, so I'm going to attempt to cut these in here, and same with the circle here. So I'm literally just going to make 3 circles, trying not to move the card underneath. And just trying to make sure that all 3 of those circles have a similar sized white line around it. And this one will have to be smaller. So I'm just sort of putting it to the width that I want down from the bottom, and then making sure I'm holding down shift while I'm doing this. Just scaling it from the bottom so that I end up with it in a reasonably similar place, and I don't think that that looks too bad. So I'm going to go ahead and print this and then run it through my silhouette, and hopefully at the end of that we should have a 4x6 card with 3 holes in it. I'm going to trim out this card with my paper trimmer. The reason I didn't cut around it with the silhouette is I just wanted to make sure that it was actually cutting on that line, and I'm never 100% trusting that the silhouette's going to get it perfectly right. So I figured it was easier just to cut those 3 circles and then use my paper trimmer to trim it out into a 4x6. Now it occurs to me that there's plenty of other ways I could have done this. I could have opened that digital card in Photoshop and actually just put in my coffee photos onto the card and then printed that all out in one, and I wouldn't have needed to go through the cutting. I kind of like the sort of handmade, I guess, feeling that it comes from having the card on top and the photos underneath, and that's really such a small tiny detail that you would only notice flicking through the album, probably if you're me. Anyone else probably isn't going to notice. So there are other ways to do this, but this was kind of fun to do. I was a little bit messy with the glue, and I don't want to back this with another card or paper or anything, so I'm just adding a little bit of washi tape over top of all those bits of glue that was stuck out there. So this is that other card I was talking about. It is a 4x6, but I'm just going to trim out the middle. There's a middle sort of dividing line. I'm just going to trim that out and then make sure that those cards are going to fit into my pockets. And I'm going to work on both of them at the same time because I like that it's 4x6 card with sort of a start and an end kind of feel to it. It just wasn't going to fit onto my spread like that. That's the only reason that I have chopped this into 2 3x4s. So I am still going to work on it like it's kind of one card together. All these little die cut pieces came from the printable in the digital kit, and I ran that through my silhouette to cut them all out. But they are all really basic shapes. You don't have to have a silhouette to cut out all these little printables. You could fussy cut those out super easily. Now, of course, the beginning of my week started with computer dramas, so that meant there was coffee involved, so these little takeaway coffee cups are perfect for this. I wanted to add a little bit more color to it though, so I grabbed out that washi tape, which is like an orange and clear, I guess, orange and white stripe, which works perfectly with that sort of peachy orange on that Here We Go card. So I do end up with a little bit of a theme color-wise. It's kind of orange and green, which is, I know, very unusual for me, but I don't hate it. That's maybe I'm maturing color-wise. So all I've done for those cards is repeat the exact same thing on each card, which is a little bit of washi tape and a couple of die cuts. Now this We Belong to Each Other card also seemed perfect for the photo of Lily and Shane, but I wanted to add some color to it. So my original thought was that I was going to just trim the card down a little bit and stick it over top of this green floral card, but I actually really like the green floral, so I decided to trim out the sentiment and sort of stick it over the top. But you can see it's far too big. It covers up too much of the floral for it to look purposeful. It just looks messy, and I persist with this for a long time, and I decide to change the sentiment. So I'm going to use that We Belong, and then I'm going to use the new ASTER Alpha to stamp out together underneath. Another option would have been to go back to those digital cards and print out the We Belong to Each Other 3x4 card, but print it smaller so that when I trimmed out the pieces it would have taken up less space on this card. But I've already cut up the card, I don't want to waste it, so I'm just going to stamp out together. Now these cards have sort of a slight glossy finish to them, so I decided to use my Stays On ink and just very carefully stamp these on here. It is very slippery, and I am double stamping each of those letters to get a really black impression. The first time I stamped it with the Stays On, it was kind of too light to look black, kind of looked like a dark green. So I just really carefully stamped over the top. That was really slippery, and I did have to be really careful. If you had some sort of stamp press, that would be perfect for that. You could get that double impression. I think I did pretty good, to be honest, to get them on top of each other and looking dark black without smudging anything. So I was really impressed with my stamping skills there. I've got only 2 photos really left to go here, and I'm just auditioning quite a few of these little die cut pieces, but because I have got this kind of color theme going, I decided to stick with it. So I'm really only using anything that's sort of peach, green. I've used a tiny bit of blue and a little bit of pink. So that does tend to cut out quite a few of the die cuts there, which sort of, I shot myself in the foot like that, but I make it work. These little round circle sentiments are so cute, and I just straight away stamped this one onto the photo of Lily and Shane, and then try to layer it with a different stamp. And of course I haven't stamped it in the right place because I was too keen to get that impression down and I didn't really think about it. So I'm just going to leave it with the one little circle sentiment. And there are a couple more on here, and they work perfectly for this photo, but I would have had to have stamped them sort of upside down, which I didn't. It wouldn't read properly, so I decided to just leave them for now. I'm sure I'll use them elsewhere, and instead I'm gonna just focus on this little cluster of die cuts down the bottom here. But unfortunately my camera cut out and I didn't realize it, so you won't see that until the end. This is the bottom photo, and it's basically the same process that I followed for the top. So I added a label and a little sentiment. I did stamp onto the label at the top there and added the flower die cut, but you can see it here. I'm just trying to keep things fairly consistent. So I'm using that washi tape and the die cuts to create my little clusters. I needed a much bigger label to go onto this 4x6 card for my title card, so I just opened Photoshop and used the eyedropper tool just to make sure that I was getting the same color label as on the printable. Created a rectangle with an outline and cut that out so that I could have a slightly longer place to stamp my week on here. And again, I'm using that ASTER Alpha. This is just going onto white card though, so I didn't need to use stays on and I didn't need to double stamp it. There is an alpha to match that, a number set to match the alpha, but I decided since it was week 22 and there are those really pretty numbers on the actual big and small stamp set, I just double stamped the number 2 on there to create my week 22. And I'm pretty much going to create the same sort of cluster here that I did on the other card. So I'm using one of the flowers from the die cuts and the labels, sticking them back to back, and then I'm going to layer that over my washi tape and my label that's already there, and then add my date stamp onto the label. This is one of those funny weeks that covers 2 months, and I wasn't going to be able to fit that like lengthwise, so I do change up my format for the date stamping and stamp one date at the top and one underneath, and I think that looks really cute. I just needed something else. So I grabbed these stickers from Feed Your Craft. They're so pretty. They're in the shop now too, and I'm gonna sort of sprinkle those across the page too, using the pink and the blue, the green and the black, so all of the colors except the yellow, because there isn't really any yellow on this page. It just kind of helps distribute some of those colors around, and I find that the end result becomes less sort of themey looking. So I've added the blue heart-like sticker to that semicircle stamp on the photo of Lily and Shane, just because I needed something extra. The little semicircle wasn't enough on its own, and I feel like that sort of makes more of a cluster there, and I'm much happier with that. So I go super heavy on these little plus cross stickers. I really love them. I'm going to need another sheet of these stickers, I think, because I wasn't hoarding them. I blast through these and there's barely any left. But overall, I'm glad I added the stickers. That just really helped pull this whole layout together. Now, I will leave the link to the Feed Your Craft shop down below in the description box. This release is live and selling out quick, so make sure you head over and pick up something for yourself. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. If you want to keep watching, don't forget to check out my Patreon page, because there are even more videos over there. Otherwise, I'll see you guys next time. Bye!